Okay, so data centers are popping up everywhere. Plans are constantly being implemented. You see meetings that are going on in the cities constantly. People are showing up, they're fighting back. Some of these data centers are getting postponed. Some of them are not being approved, the plans, and others are just being pushed through no matter how many people show up at the council meetings.
You're arresting him.
What? Oh! Channel 8, note how they let the person positive go over his time. You're shameful. You're shameful. Shameful.
Okay, we just
Everybody
need
take a
everybody
picture of
to get
this.
down.
Disgusting.
We need to get through the meeting so that everyone can
Now,
talk.
why don't y'all quit arresting people?
Just arrest him for talking.
Would you make a note that they let their guys speak before we go over without arresting him?
So I took a chopper over a data center in Ohio because they are being set up to completely destroy all of our lives while making us pay for the thing that's going to enslave us. But I'm actually not screwing around. I took a chopper, and I hope this pisses off a lot of federal level politicians and billionaires because so I wanted to fly over this. I'm going to show you the footage. So last week, Thursday morning, decided to take a chopper up and away. Now, the data center is basically halfway between Perrysburg, Ohio, which is a suburb of the greater Toledo, Ohio area in northwestern Ohio, and also Bowling Green, Ohio, which there's another university there. And it's in an area of farmland that no one would ever see and no one would ever care about. Now, this is going in close to I-75 off of an exit, but you wouldn't see it from the highway. And when you go up in the helicopter, it's very obvious where their placement was to do that. It's close enough to all the infrastructure, but farther enough removed. The only people that would notice are the people driving by that probably wouldn't care, or the farmers, or the people in the small rural houses in which, and this is not hyperbolic, this will destroy their lives and property value.
So have you been wondering why they're building these AI data centers? Some of it's top secret. You know that Matador data center they're building in Amarillo, Texas? You know they named it after Donald Trump, right? Well, it's going to supply 10,000 jobs a year until the year 2032. They're going to build 15 individual data centers that's got 500,000 square foot each in them. And they plan on completing 3 a year starting in 2027. The first year, they're going to spend it doing underground utilities, building a wastewater system, water supply systems, and doing ground and grade work. But did you know that it's going to use as much electricity as 8.2 million houses? But that's okay because they're going to build their own power plant. Did you know that it's going to use 3.3 million gallons of water every single day? Over 1 billion gallons of water a year. Now that power plant that they're building, it's going to have 4 nuclear reactors in it. And it uses a lot of water keeping it cool also. Now they're going to try to save as much water as possible by using recirculatory systems. But the thing is, that water evaporates and you can only recirculate it so much before you have to let the water out because it gets full of trash, minerals, metal. They don't think that that water is going to be contaminated with nuclear contamination, and they plan on pumping it back into the ground with injection wells. Now, one of the most interesting and disturbing facts about this data center is it's going to be built right next door to Pantex, Nuclear Weapons Assembly Plant. And inside that data center, there's going to be a company called Palantir that's nestled in one of those data centers. Now, you know the U.S. government is trying to build a 100,000 humanoid robot army, right? Well, Palantir is going to be instrumental in AI design and automation of warfare for those robots. Because somebody has to teach them how to think and make informed decisions. And somebody has to teach the computer to know when to hit the button.
My hometown is building the largest data center in the world. And normally, like when people say something like this, you'd be like, oh, that's a really interesting fact. Did you know that my hometown, with the exception of a single season, has been in a drought since 1997? Do you know what data centers need? Water. The data center that is being built outside of Amarillo, Texas, in Cass County, is going to be 5 miles on each side. 5 miles on each side of the complex. Yeah. And, you know, if Amarillo, Texas were just a place in the Panhandle, most people wouldn't care, except it's also a place that gets very, very hot. Sure, you get a couple of years where you're going to get a big snowstorm, it might freeze, whatever, but most of the time it's just super hot and dry. Do you know where Amarillo gets its water? Sure, some of it comes from the reservoir at Lake Meredith, but the majority of the water that Amarillo and the surrounding Panhandle uses comes from the Ogallala Aquifer. That's right, an underground water source that stretches across the United States. That's where most of the water comes from because there isn't a lot of groundwater or rainwater. So this data center is going to be pulling water from the Ogallala Aquifer, a data center that uses more power than the entire state of Texas combined times 2. A data center that uses more power than 38 states. And they're going to build it in one of the hottest, driest places in the nation.
Good old Clarksville, Arkansas. Went and done some shady shit. Yeah, here comes the new spot for the data center that these shady didn't tell not one person. I didn't hear anything about it until somebody said it was already a done deal, which is pretty shady to me if you ask me. These should have sent a letter out to every in this town to either say yes or no, and they did not. But you know what? Our bills and shit go up, most likely from this stupid shit, and we're just gonna have to sit here and take the shit. Good old America, huh? Didn't take a vote on it, nothing. I didn't hear a word about it. They probably secretly put it in plan, just like the government does in this shitty world. But we're just going to have to sit here and let this data center just be built.
Morning, living next to the construction of a data center. Just want to film some of the stuff going on here today. It's pretty cold, but you can see like some of the equipment moving around. How would you like to be these people? They didn't get a chance to get bought out. Neither did that farm living across from it. So WKOW News has reached out to me about what it's like living next to this, and they'll be coming over tonight to my house to do an interview. So I'm looking forward to sharing what this has been like and the impact that it has had on my local community. If you have one coming near you, you need to start going to your city council meetings, because they don't have to advertise that a data center is coming. It's going to be a non-disclosure agreement. They're going to decide that behind closed doors. So they might advertise your meeting as a TID about the tax increment district. They might not even explain what a TID is that allows these data centers to be built. You'll have to look that up. That's a whole TikTok in itself, how TID districts work to allow these data centers to come in. You're going to find out it's a data center much after it's too late.
What is the push for AI? Why is that the focus right now? Why isn't it high-speed rails? That would benefit so many people across the country. It would change the face of the country if people seriously could go from New York to Chicago on a train in 3 hours. It would change how jobs would work. It would change how entertainment would work. It would increase domestic tourism to new heights because people could get around for cheaper than planes. Because, you know, planes use a lot of jet fuel and a lot of electric rails use electricity and magnetism. Why is the push for AI and AI data centers? Why is that the infrastructure? It doesn't actually benefit anyone. It doesn't benefit our lives. In fact, it impacts our lives negatively because data centers put a major strain on our electric grid, and it's raising people's electrical bills and utility bills by $200 or $300. It's insane. Why the AI push? Why the push for data centers when it's literally sucking water, clean water, out of our system and using chemicals so that we can't recycle it in a lot of the data centers? Why is that the push instead of sustainable infrastructure, instead of green energy, instead of things that actually help us build our culture, build our society, build the United States? I just have a lot of questions. Why are they focusing so much on AI? It's like a manufactured need. Nobody needed this. Nobody wanted it. I'm being forced to use it anytime I do a Google search or whatever. I didn't ask for this. Google was fine before. So I just don't understand why they can't do anything to help people, but we can jump through all these hoops to build data centers and AI. It's weird, and it doesn't make sense.
This is a pretty stunning stat. Half of all of the new demand for electricity in the U.S. in the next 5 years is expected to be driven by data centers. These data centers are the backbone of AI technology. But in partnership with our stations across the country, we saw how they are dividing communities worried about higher utility bills. This was the sound at Laura Evans' home in suburban Chicago last spring, when backup generators kicked in at the data center 1,000 feet from her backyard. And it never goes away.
Never goes away.
Laura tells us the data center emits a droning hum 24/7. And it's not just the noise taking a toll. She says in the last year, her average electricity bill has spiked 23%.
And how do you budget when it's changing that much in 1 year? You can't.
And her electric company warned prices could rise even more, saying one reason why is increased electricity use from data centers and artificial intelligence. ABC News and our owned and affiliated stations spoke with communities across the country grappling with the rapid buildup of data centers to support the AI boom. An analysis from our data team found there are more than 3,000 data centers in the U.S. About 1,200 more are now under construction or soon to be built.
If you're using AI, ultimately a lot of the computation happening there, or at least the storage for that thing, is in a data center somewhere.
It's just a massive construction site. A 2-hour drive from Laura's home, we visited the site of what will be one of the biggest data centers in the U.S. in the small town of Port Washington, Wisconsin. A $15 billion project backed by OpenAI and Oracle that's part of the White House's Stargate initiative. The campus sits on a plot of farmland bigger than 500 football fields and will eventually use about the same amount of electricity needed to keep the lights on in all the homes in Philadelphia.
They'd be putting power lines that are taller than apparently the Statue of Liberty.
Tom Utek is an artist who's lived on this land for 40 years. He showed us where the utility company is planning to build a massive power line on his property for the project.
They'll just take over your land.
Yeah, and we'll fight it to the end.
At a town hall this month, we saw how the data center is dividing the community.
We are not going to pay double the amount of our utility bills. Do you understand that?
These are good-paying union jobs.
Mayor Ted Knightsky defends the project, saying it will bring jobs and much-needed tax revenue.
These are huge companies. Are you convinced that they will be willing to invest in this community?
They've been awesome. I mean, they have met every expectation we have given them.
In statements to ABC News, OpenAI and Oracle said they're committed to paying for the energy they use. And the data center operator insists residents and businesses in Port Washington will not see an increase in their electric bills due to the project.
Some proponents of this technology say this is the future. What do you say to that?
Build it somewhere else and just make sure it's done right, because this isn't right.
In a statement to ABC News, the data center by Laura's house apologized to neighbors and said it's installed sound barriers. We also spoke with the utility and energy companies in Illinois and Wisconsin. They said they are taking steps to ensure those projects don't shift higher costs to customers. You can see much more of our report, Dataland USA, how AI is changing our neighborhoods. That is tonight on ABC News Live Prime and Nightline. And guys, when we saw these sites, it really was hard to wrap your head around just the scale of it. 500 football fields using enough electricity to power an entire city just in that one place.
This is such an eye-opener.
It's a huge thing when you think about just how quickly these are popping up right now.
Yeah.
Not a lot of regulation around this. These smaller towns are struggling to keep up, and it's a lot of times residents who are saying, what's happening to us?
Residents should not have to pay. Any of their energy bill shouldn't go up.
All of the neighbors we spoke to said, just don't put it on us.
How big is the new data center campus they're building in the Texas Panhandle? It's the biggest one in the world. It will use as much power as all of the homes in the entire state of Texas combined times 2. It will use more power than 38 states. Not combined, but it will use more power than all of the power used in any one of 38 different states. The data center campus portion of it is, I believe, 18 million square feet. It will sit on a piece of ground that is 5 square miles. So you can drive by it for 5 miles, make a right turn, and drive by it for another 5 miles. That's pretty big. You know what the wild part is? The company building it has no knowledge of data centers. Nope, not in the data center business. Project Matador. Look it up.
I'm sitting here watching my property through my screen with some cottonwood that blew on the and I'm very sad. We just got terrible news that more data centers are planned for our city near the same area. And some of the people that I grew up with, some of the teachers that I had when I was a child, they've already sold, and the property is going to be developed. They're working on agreements with the city, and I don't understand how to make people hear us that this is not something we want. We don't want to be data center city. We don't want our high school mascot to be a computer chip. This is my home, and I've worked my entire life to build it, and to have to hand it back at half its value because somebody in a billion-dollar company thinks they need even more money, and it's a mechanism that's not even going to last. It's not sustainable. These data centers have a value, like a life expectancy of like 20 years. So by the time the TID closes, their tax incentive, and they actually need to start paying back, it's done and it's over and it's obsolete. And now we have this massive crater in our neighborhood, on our farmland, near our lakes, for what? So that a few construction crew members had a job for 4 years? It just reminds me of when my children were little and we had to replace a toilet in the bathroom, and they tried to talk us into a short little toilet because we had kids. No, you don't build a toilet in your bathroom every year for the rest of your life. You're not going to put a once-in-a-lifetime fixture in your home for a temporary issue. These data centers, they're going to give 13 jobs. The second one they want to put in, it's 5 jobs. What are we doing? Oh, my heart is absolutely breaking. I want to show you what happens when they build a data center near your home. They need to put in more power lines, right? And that means they need to widen the road. And they need to widen the road a lot. A lot. Look at the size of this equipment. So if you lived there, you just lost all that property for eminent domain. And where that piece of equipment is right there, that was all thick forest. So all of those trees were cut down and brought out so that they could put up this row of power lines to handle the energy that's going to be pumping in there. And Alliant Energy is right across, right there, you can see. Right there. And it is going to jack up your power bill. So in order to not use as much water in like a closed loop system, which they brag about being less than like 2 restaurants use of water, you have to use a ton of fans to blow that cold air around. And so that requires a ton of energy, and guess who gets to pay for that? The taxpayers.
You have to ask yourself, why are there so many data centers being built? What's the big push? What's the big concern here that's going on? You have to ask yourself, what is the big push with all of these data centers being built? Why the rush within the next couple of years? If you pay attention, you see that most of them are looking to be finalized by 27, 28, 2029, definitely by 2030. There is a huge push for them, and they are popping up everywhere. In the cities, near the cities, in rural areas. People are fighting back, but these cities and the counties, they are approving for land to be rezoned if the zoning doesn't currently allow for it, for these data centers to be put in. This is huge. People are waking up to how bad these really are for the environment, for your health, for your utility bills, everything. People are really trying hard to push back against these, to really use their voice and stand up, and I'm so grateful to see that. I've seen a few personally in nearby areas that have been halted, but there are a lot that are just kind of pushing through. So do you have any data centers popping up near you? Have you seen any pushback in your local area? What are your thoughts on this? The reason for the huge push. It seems like so many things are getting pushed for completion before 2030. And if you've been around this channel for a while, you should know what my thoughts are on all of that. But drop your comments down below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And I hope to catch you in the next video. Until then, take care.